there and welcome to this month's Janome Stitch Club UK. My name is Julia Langley and I'm one of the Janome educators in the UK, and in this club we're trying to look at different techniques, different feet, etc. for you to use on your machines, and some of the stitches as well, and how you can up your game with your sewing. Last time we looked at shell tucking and hit exhibit A. And this time I wanted, and I did promise, that we would look at pin tucks. So I'm going to be looking at the pin tucking foot, other ways of doing pin tucks, the twin needle. We've got quite a lot to get through, because as ever with any of this stuff, once I start looking into it, what starts off as quite a short video ends up I have to kind of try and rein it in. But there's lots of interesting things you can do with both the twin needle and the idea of pin tucking. So I have got literally, look, a pile of samples of stuff. I wish I'd done this on this, but I might be able to get back in and have a go. Things like this, lots of different techniques. As I say, twin needles using for hemming, etc. And things like the twin needles, for example, generally you would use a twin needle. Most people think of it in terms of using it with stretch fabrics. And I'm not going to go through stretch fabrics today. I'm going to put a link, because I have previously done a video all on stitches that you'd use with stretch fabrics. So today I wanted to go through purely the sort of the decorative element that you can use for garments across the summer. And as I say, a little look at those twin needle techniques as well. Lots to go through, and I think we just need to get on with it, don't we? So let's turn the camera around and we'll actually have a little look. So let's have a little look at pin tucks in their sort of simplest form, and then I want to go on to the pin tucking foot and the twin needle setting. So if you look in your instruction book, very often pin tucking, it will actually tell you how to go about it, and usually it is by actually folding your fabric and then doing a very narrow hem down here. Now we've talked about feet a lot in the past, and what I've done here is I've got out a range of feet that I would use for exactly that method, partly because each one of these has got that lip, and these lipped feet do make life a lot easier for these kinds of techniques. So I've got my 1/4 inch foot here. This is the blind hem foot, G, and the S foot is the stitch in the ditch foot. I'm going to come to this fella in a minute. All of these, you'll notice the differences in where this gap is in the middle, and that's going to be really key. If you just want a basic set of pin tucks, then something like the 1/4 inch foot is really good, because it's going to, you can use your 1/4 inch setting on your machine as well. I'll put a little picture in the side of that one, and it means that every single one will be 1/4 inch wide. So if I swap that out and pop this one on, oh, hang on, let's wake the machine up. It's fallen asleep. I bored it into submission. There we go. So now I've got that one on, and I haven't marked anything out. I'm just literally going to run these along. So I'm going to fold that in half, and then I can actually get that right up against the edge of that fold and then run it down. So I've just got my regular straight stitch on here. This is in the central needle position. I haven't put the patchwork setting on yet. So if we look at that, that is giving us quite a deep pin tuck there. if I fold it again, and this time I'm going to actually use that patchwork setting. So once I actually put that on, you see the needle has moved to the side. If you don't have a patchwork setting, all you need to do is move your needle position. It's going to depend on your 1/4 inch feet. I'm on the 9mm here, so but I've got a much narrower Pintuck there. Okay, and this kind of thing means that I can do different, by just changing that needle position, I can change the sizes of my Pintucks going through. If I want a really, really narrow one, let me take that off. I'm going to pop on now my G foot, which is the blind hem foot. Now, when I put this under, the needle is here, my fabric is here. So on this one, a little bit like, I can't remember when I showed you this, I think we talking about top stitching. So what I want to do here is I've taken my needle over to the far left. Okay, you may have a stitch, and again, I'll put a little picture of that stitch. Some machines actually have a preset stitch where it takes the needle over to the left, and that will give you a tiny little Pintuck. It's literally a couple of millimeters, but again, use the width setting, will change your needle position on a straight stitch. But with this one, because you've got that sort of wire in the middle, this works really well for those really tiny Pintucks. So now look, we're on a teeny tiny one, and so here I've marked out a whole set of lines, and this is what I've ended up with. I've used that tiny one to do all my Pintucks to start with, and then I've done this wave, so I've gone across with them in one direction and then in the other direction and then back again, so actually stitching them down, and you get this absolutely glorious sort of wave effect, which looks really stunning. So that's the sort of the basics of that. Now, if to continue with this theory of different ones, I just thought this was an opportunity. We will talk about this foot more in the future. Now, this is the sliding guide foot, and as you can see, it's got a lip here, and the clue's in the name. Look, it slides in and out. You've got the full swing of the needle here in the center and markings on the side, so you can do your Pintucks as wide as you like with this one. So if we pop this one on, for example, and I'm going to push it up a wee bit. Once you get it in position, this little grey bit at the back, you just click it and it will actually then stay in position. So if I drop that down, my needle is here. So look, I've got a hugely wide Pintuck going on here. So this is more of a tuck than a Pintuck. Almost like a box pleat, I suppose, in some ways, because, let me bring you back out again. I think we're in a little bit too close there. If I then press that down, what I could then do is go through the centre. So I'm using one of my decorative stitches. Not going to go all the way down to the bottom. just want to show you. So there we go. So I've got this sort of box pleat effect going on, which again, across the top, wouldn't that look nice on the top of a blouse? So that's that foot. As I say, we will come back to that one because that's a very, very useful foot to have. People often ask about the keeping a 5/8 seam allowance, etc., on dressmaking, and this is the one that I would recommend. If you want to be really accurate, then this is the fella, because as I say, you've got that full swing there, so you can move your needle position and you can move this as well. But we will definitely come back to that. So let's move on to the actual twin needle sewing with the Pintuck Feet in particular. So this is a twin needle. I mean, I think that's fairly obvious. You've got the same, it goes in exactly the same as your regular needle. Flat bit to the back, rounded bit to the front, and you've got the two needles there, and that gap between them is 2 millimeters. Okay, and that's really important because that is what the twin needle setting on your machine is set up to work with. So once you've put that needle in, it's then a case of threading. And I would say at this point, most definitely refer to your instruction book and follow it very carefully through. Different machines will be slightly different, so you do definitely need to do that. So I've taken I've got a spare spool on the top here, and I've taken my threads through and round and up, and then one, it's the blue one here, I've gone down through here, behind here, and I've actually gone behind that bit. It's more obvious in the actual instruction book, that's why I'm telling you to look in there. And then the pink one round exactly the same, and that's going through the front here, so that it's separating them, and then they're again separated here. One goes right to the far left and the other one over to the right. But as I say, check your instruction book. So we're all now threaded up and ready to go. The next thing we need to do is actually let the machine know that we're using a twin needle. This model and many other models actually have a twin needle setting, and on the Atelier it's up here. And as soon as I press that, I've told the machine I'm on twin needle. I'll put a little picture in here of what the button looks like on some of the other makes as well. But can you see what's happened? It's taken out a lot of these stitches. It's showing me here. This is why I'm doing it on this machine, because it actually shows you the 2 lines of stitches. So it's very clear to see. But if I now scroll through my pages, you'll see it's taken out a huge amount of stitches, because it knows that some of those stitches are not going to work, because I now don't have that full 9mm swing of the needle, because I've got a 2mm needle in. So for example, if I go back to just the utility stitches, if I put it onto the zigzag stitch, it's still going to let me do a zigzag stitch, and look, you can see with the 2 colours how it's going to look. But if I bring up this screen to show you the actual settings, on the stitch width, the swing of the needle here, normally that I would be able to go up to 9mm with that. But look, it's making me stop at 3. It's not going to let me go any higher. It'll let me go lower, but it will not let me go higher than 3, because it knows that if it does, that needle is going to hit the side of the foot and it's just going to break straight away. And these aren't cheap needles, you only get 1 in a pack, so that would be absolutely appalling if you just broke it straight out of the starting gate, wouldn't it? So it's blocking out those stitches. I'm going to go back to the very first one, the straight stitch, and we're going to actually do some pin tucks now, and then I'll talk you through how to look at some of the decorative stitches as well. So I've put in turquoise because I want you to be able to see exactly what the bobbin's doing. So if I run that again, I forgot I had the white one in there, but let's just show you what's happening. That's better. So now you can see that what the turquoise is doing is it's just going between the two on the underneath. Hence you've got 2 threads on the top, but you've still only got 1 thread on the bottom. Okay, this is why it works so well on stretch fabrics, because you've now got a zigzag going on underneath. So that's why it's pretty good working on stretch fabrics. Now, if I then go to just a regular piece of fabric to stitch this out. So this is a linen. Stitch that out. There we go. So you can see it's sitting relatively flat there, isn't it? Zigzags going on. Now, when you're working with it on stretch fabric, what you do not want is what's called tunneling, where it goes up like this and it pulls it too tight. Now, I'm on my regular settings here. I can feel, and I think you can slightly see, there's only a very, very slight bump here. What you want with Pintucks is we want to accentuate that. So if I bring you back over and show you, I've got my twin needle setting on here, but on the atelier I'm going to go into my little t-shirt, and then I've got pin tucking here, and if I go into pin tucking, it's going to show me the feet. So I've got the narrow or the wide foot option. Here's N2. But what I wanted to show you on here is this, that when we come into these settings, you'll notice that on the automatic tension, the tension here, which normally runs at about 3.5, is gone up to 7. Now the machine's automatically done that because it knows I want to do pin tucking. If you don't have this on your machine, you are going to need to do this manually on your tension. So what we want to do is we're basically encouraging that tunneling process. So if I now run it, so I've just run those quick 4 lines there, and I've used the just the side of the foot as my guide. But what I wanted to show you is that now these are much more raised than this flat one where we didn't change the tension. So I think, yeah, from this angle you can see a bit better that these have actually got much more raised, and it's because we've tightened that tension, so they're actually lifting. I think, yeah, I think you can see, can't you, that they're actually lifting off slightly. So the other thing I wanted to look at is you can get Pintuck Cord Guides, and in that set, and they're clear, so of course I've managed to lose it straight away, you get a narrow and a wide, and that is referring to the cord that you're using. So this narrow one, this is the one that I tend to use with embroidery thread, and then there's a wider one as well. I've just put a little sticker on the packet so it makes me remember easier which one's which. It sits over here, so I have put in the description below, because the code that you will need, the reference on the back here to make sure you're getting the right one for your machine, is going to depend on the shape of your bobbin cover here. So if I then just get some regular embroidery floss. Now I've put my regular foot back on, but I'm going to do this with the Pintuck foot. There we go. So it's now held under there, which means if I just grab a bit of fabric for a sample and drop that down. So I'm still just on that straight stitch, and I can feel the guide here. So it's in the middle. I need to make sure my needles are in the center position, and I can feel my thread here. Normally just give a little bit of tension on there. Let's get that out. Oh, there we go. Have a little look. So this here, if we compare it, we've got the just regular twin stitching here. Then we've got the pin tucking setting where we've taken the tension up, and now we've actually put something in that actual gap, and this is much more right. I think you can see, but we can see underneath, look what it's doing, that it's going across there like that. So I've now put the wider one, and this is a very narrow piping cord. So I'm still on my regular pin tucking settings. And I can really feel this now, because this is much thicker, probably about 2 or 3 times the thickness. There we go. So as I say, look, much, I didn't do that very straight, did I? But much thicker. And I can feel this is a linen, but look, it's making it much thicker. And you look on the underneath. So like I say, these were a bit of a discovery for me. I've only just started tiddling around with those to see what can be done. Now let's have a little look at some of those decorative stitches. There we go. Like I say, it's blocking out the ones that I can't do. So I'm going to have a little look through and see which one takes... Oh, that one definitely takes my fancy. Right, so let's have a little look. Keep your speed low, don't rush it. Especially, I mean, I've spray starched this because I'm just going on to single as I would with any of these sort of settings, or you could put the usual thing, a stabilizer, maybe a washable one or something like that on the underneath. But as per usual, if you're stitching on a single layer of fabric, you will need something. But look how pretty that is. So what I've done, and what I would recommend you do, is go through. Here we go. I have gone through pretty much all of the stitches that are available on that twin needle setting, just to see exactly what they look like. And I've not only done them in colour, which looks lovely, I think we'll all admit that they do look very lovely, but what I was even more impressed with actually was when I did the same exercise and I did it in white on white. And how stunning is that? Because frankly, it makes it look like braid, doesn't it, on the fabric? I think that's a really lovely effect. So I then went on to stitch it. Hang on. There we go. So that very fine cotton lawn that my blouse is made out of, where I did all the shell tucks last week, I've done pin tucks, just regular pin tucks here, and through the centre of 2 of those pin tucks, I've used one of those fancy stitches, and it's such a delicate look, isn't it? It's really pretty, really delicate. So lots and lots of ideas there probably to get you going. And once again, another rabbit hole. Also, don't forget hemming. You know, why just do a plain single line for hemming when you can do something much more attractive? So here we go, coloured and white on white, a couple of those stitches there for hemming stitches. all really nice ideas, especially with summer coming up. So there we go. I did tell you it was quite a lot to get through. And as I say every week, I think I say this every time, don't I? Just scratching the surface, so much more you can do. But hopefully you'll have a little test run, have a little play and see what you can come up with. I am already thinking, having looked at those stitches, the twin needle stitches, the decorative ones, I'm going to get my circular attachment out because I think they would look fantastic actually on even just on a plain white on white, to make some fabric to make a shirt or a top. And that's the joy of it, you know, instead of necessarily buying some of these embroidered fabrics, you've got stitches on your machine and you've got things that you can do on your machine that can actually really give you some interesting effects that are going to put your dressmaking into a different league. So I hope you enjoyed that. Usual thing, if you want to give a little thumbs up and maybe subscribe if you're not already subscribed. We drop loads of these videos, so please do that, and then you'll be notified when the next one is up. And also any questions, etc., just pop them in the comments below, and all the links, as I've said throughout the video, will be in the description below. And I'll see you next time.